Okay, so I've got, of course, we have way too much time in our hands to think about all this crap, right? I mean, they need to be playing like today. I mean, I know that's a quick turnaround for Toronto, but way too much time in our hands to think about all these wild conspiracies about what could happen here, what could happen there. So as I got to thinking about this, my theme last night was I'm worried because I'm too arrogant, okay? And we got some feedback on that, like, yeah, I get you, baseball gods and all that. So here's one angle of this that I kind of got to thinking about that I think is legitimate, and we'll see what the people in the crowd think and what you think about this. Here's one way I think Toronto can beat Toronto can beat the Dodgers. So one thing the Dodgers did very well against Milwaukee. Milwaukee likes to walk a lot, right, Austin?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They take a lot of pitches, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So what happened to Milwaukee is that they took a lot of pitches. The Dodgers knew they were going to take a lot of pitches. So the Dodgers threw strike one all over and over. I mean, like in the last start by Blake Snell, he threw like 13 out of 14 strike one. Same with Tyler Glasnow. Same with Yoshinobu Yamamoto. So the Dodgers knew the Brewers weren't going to swing at early pitches. So they just threw get-me-overs for strike one. And Milwaukee was constantly having to swing in pitchers' counts because they didn't swing early in the count because that's just part of their game plan. So Toronto's different. Yes, they put the ball in play a lot, but they are one of the most aggressive teams in baseball in terms of swinging the bat, right? Mm-hmm. And so here is my theory here where the Dodgers could get in trouble. If the Dodgers throw get-me-overs for strike one like they did with Milwaukee, and instead of taking the pitch like the Brewers did, the Toronto Blue Jays swing at it, and the Blue Jays continue to slug like no other team, and of course a lot of that as Vlad Guerrero Jr., but if the Blue Jays continue to slug like no other team has in the postseason, including the Dodgers, and they hit a handful of home runs in early count get-me-over pitches, they get the Dodgers behind in games, and then the Dodgers offense hasn't been good, and the Dodgers just can't make up that deficit that they got by hitting home runs early in the game and early in counts. Is that a little bit too tinfoil?
No, I think that is accurate in the sense that the Blue Jays have been hitting really well this postseason. As we talked about during the show yesterday, a 143 WRC plus for the Blue Jays in the postseason. And one approach that they've taken that's been a little bit different during the stretch is they're swinging more at the first pitch. During the course of the regular season, it was about 32%, which is about league average for the Blue Jays swinging at the first pitch. During the postseason, that has elevated 5 to 6% each series, or for both of the postseason series, that has elevated. It was 37.5% for the Blue Jays against the New York Yankees and 38.3% against the Seattle Mariners, which means that the Blue Jays are already a pretty aggressive club. They are one of the teams that swings the most in the game of baseball, both out of zone and in zone. But what we're seeing in the postseason, this was taken, I just looked this up right now. I think it was taken from some people that posted it on X, so all the credit to them. They are swinging more first pitch recently, which I think goes to your credit as what you said. The Dodgers, in order to be able to attack the Milwaukee Brewers because they were so passive at the plate, decided to go ahead and attack and execute. That was the game plan. For the Blue Jays, they're going to be a little bit more high swinging, which means that especially with a team that doesn't strike out as much, they're going to rely much more on putting the ball in play and trying to get some rallies together, which means it's imperative not that the Dodgers just throw strike one, but they execute on their location of pitches, which is a different degree of difficulty and execution that the Dodgers are going to have to manage in this series.
It's not about just throwing strike one like it was to Milwaukee. In the Milwaukee series, it was just, hey, boys, and the Dodgers pitched backwards quite a bit. This is a fun cat and mouse game, too. So we're kind of going over the cat and mouse games that potentially could give the Dodgers problem, okay? So in the Milwaukee series, again, it was about, hey, boys, pitch backwards, but whenever you do pitch backwards, throw your ball to strike concepts. And what I mean by that is just flip it. Now, the Dodgers weren't just throwing 92-mile-an-hour fastballs in there to get ahead. They were masterful the way they pitched backwards, but while they were pitching backwards, there's a difference between like a get-me-over breaking ball and then a two-strike breaking ball. Does it make sense? Like a get-me-over breaking ball is going to start out of the zone, and it's going to break into the zone, and those are the ones that are hittable. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, we have seen, has given up. If there's been one weakness for him, other than maybe sometimes not executing his locations, and throwing enough strikes in terms of being pinpoint. It's that he gives up, he hangs his curveball. And so I could easily see Yoshinobu Yamamoto throwing a get me over curveballs, that one you just flip in there. It doesn't break quite as much. You just make sure it's a strike, right? That's what get me over means. A 2-strike curveball means you're breaking it off. I mean, you're making it break off the table, right? So I just think really one thing, a big cat and mouse game is when the Dodgers pitch backwards and they just flip in those get me over breaking balls and or those 94 to 95 mile an hour fastballs that aren't pinpointed like to the corner. They're pinpointing to like a third instead of like the black. I think Toronto's really going to try to get after those pitches. And here's the deal. Toronto has been the best team at putting the ball in play. They have been the best team in terms of slug. And they have an offense that has been, they have 3 or 4 guys right now that are at the peak of their game. And they have kind of one of the tools that they would need to hurt the Dodgers. So I do think that's a cat and mouse game that I just went over there.
Yeah, it comes down to continued execution for the Dodgers pitchers, but when it's execution, it is not just about throwing strikes, it's about where exactly you throw strikes.
Hold on, I don't mean to stop you. Let me say this. I wanted to finish this. I didn't finish this. Sorry. So to me, it's less about just throwing strike one like you did against Milwaukee, and it's more about, hey, I've got to throw it. I can't just throw it to a third. I can't just throw a flip me in there, right? I've actually got to pitch like it's an 0-2 count. I got to locate to the black against Toronto, especially early in the count. It's not about just, hey, and even if you get behind in the count, so let's pivot to this, Austin, and I'll turn it over to you. So instead of saying, hey, throw strike one, pivot to what we talk about a lot. Instead of just thinking strike one, let's just think 2 strikes out of the first 3 pitches. That makes your pitchers more unpredictable. That leaves you less vulnerable to the ambush by the Blue Jays. And I think at that point, the Dodgers pitchers can overpower.
There's less ambush that you will have to do if that is the approach. And there's also an understanding that this Toronto offense is going to chase more pitches because they're a more free swinging type of team. They're going to swing more.
They're going to swing more, but they're going to chase more?
They are going to chase more. The 7th highest out-of-zone swing percentage in Major League Baseball is in Toronto. In the postseason, I don't necessarily know what their chase percentage data is. They've made a whole lot of contact as a club, which means they're going to swing at a lot of different pitches to be able to do that. And as a unit, they're just going to be more aggressive at the plate, which means that you can take advantage of some of the aggressiveness by the pitch selection that you have by trying to get the Blue Jays to be able to roll over balls, to get some ground balls. The Blue Jays as an offense can be a team, especially with some of the players like Vlad Jr. The reason why he was more limited during the course of the regular season, only a 133 WRC plus for him or something around that for Vlad Jr., is because he goes through stretches where he hits the ball on the ground too much.
Yep.
When Vlad Jr. is elevating, he is absolutely dominant. When pitchers can take advantage of the aggressiveness of the Blue Jays Blue Jays hitters, they can generate a lot of ground balls, which means that the contact results are going to be very limited as far as impact that the Blue Jays are going to have as an offensive unit. And so I think that's going to be part of the game plan, is how do we get the Blue Jays, who are going to make some contact, limit to put the ball in the air.
Yeah. So I think here's the way that you get out a team that not only swings a lot, they hit a lot of home runs, and then as of late, they're not missing a lot. They're putting the ball in play at a very high rate. So it's the best. It's the best of all worlds for Toronto right now. And again, hey, we're just going over cat and mouse games that could favor Toronto. Let's make it very clear. We both think the Dodgers are very heavy favorites in this series. We're not trying to make any kind of case that the Dodgers aren't heavy favorites at all. But we're just trying to go through the entire gambit and actually find parts of the cat and mouse games, the games inside the games that Toronto could win. That might start out as little things, but we all know that little things can turn into big things. Especially here's kind of what I'm backing this up with. The Dodgers aren't hitting crap right now. So for me to sit here and be arrogant, and for me, now I know that Shohei Ohtani went off that last game and this or that, or for me to sit here and be as confident as I was last night, it's because of the pitching. But then when you think, okay, well, Toronto can do some things that Milwaukee couldn't, because here's the deal: whenever you have whenever you have stuff like Tyler Glasnow, Blake Snell, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, and Shohei Ohtani. You're an odds guy, right? I mean, you're a statistician.
Yep.
What are the odds that a team's going to string together 5 hits and 3 runs against that stuff?
It's very difficult to be able to do that.
So when you get down like 3-0 and you're the Brewers and you're like, well, we don't hit home runs, we're going to have to string 5 hits together in the dugout from a morale perspective. What are you thinking?
You feel like it's a massive hole.
Correct. So that kind of puts you in that negativity mood if you're like, this game's over. You saw that. I mean, that's why they broke. Whereas if you're Toronto, you're not going to see that from them because they're going to think, hey, they're going to throw strikes. They are going to challenge us. At least 1, maybe 2 out of the first 3 pitches, not only are we going to be able to hit, we're going to be able to hit the damn thing out of the yard, and we're going to get a bloop and a blast, and even if we get down 3 or 4 runs, we have the ability and the type of offense that can get back in this game. So I think from that perspective in itself, you're going to see the possibility of a more competitive Toronto team.
The Toronto is riding a lot of confidence right now because in their 11 postseason games that they've had, they've hit 20 home runs. And that is vastly outpacing what they did through the course of the regular season, which means that they have a lot of hitters who are hot right now that are playing incredibly well,
my God,
which means that they are rolling into the series, even though the Dodgers have what seemingly seems like a massive advantage in this series. They're rolling in with a lot of confidence right now. Toronto, a lot of hitters are performing really well, which means it's up to the Dodgers to be able to be exactly precise on a lot of their pitches to prevent the offensive explosion that we've seen from Toronto and really the power component. That's why Toronto's offense has looked so good in the postseason, is because the added power component, which was there but not to an extreme degree in the regular season, has been multiplied by a lot in the postseason. If the Dodgers can limit that, they're really going to limit Toronto's offensive capabilities, just like they limited Milwaukee's offensive capabilities.
Yes. So I know the Dodgers have the Hall of Fame 3 at top, right? Shohei, Mookie, and Freddie. Okay. But man, George Springer, I know Dodgers fans hate him, but you got to admit, George Springer is a damn good player, especially in the postseason. Vlad Guerrero Jr. is on par with nobody's on par with Shohei Ohtani, but he's on par with Mookie Betts. He's on par with Freddie Freeman, right? And then Bo Bichette. If Bo Bichette is Bo Bichette, he's on par there too, right? So the Toronto Blue Jays, they have top-end hitters, and then they have guys like Ernie Clement that's hitting .429 in the postseason. They have guys like Barger, Anthony Barger, that is having a good postseason. You know, so they have guys that can hurt you. So I could see a world, Austin, to where Tyler Glasnow walks 2 or 3 guys, Blake Snell walks 3 or 4 guys, Toronto hits a couple of 2-run home runs, the Dodgers give up 4 runs, the Dodgers offense is a no-show like we've seen even in the postseason, and the Toronto Blue Jays win 4-1. I see that. I see that there is a world out there where that happens 4 times.
There is
not likely, but there's a world out there that could happen 4 times.
Yes, it is unlikely, but there is a world where this is happening because of the trends that we have seen for teams that have long layoffs going into the postseason for their offensive struggles. For the Blue Jays as a bullpen, even though they have struggled, they get a lot of swing and miss, which that is one of the vulnerabilities that the Dodgers have. And I think one of the main things that the Blue Jays have to do is their starting pitchers have to keep these games close. If they can keep these games close, they're going to give themselves enough chances and they can gather enough hits together because of the amount of contact that they're going to play. And one thing that kind of stood out that we did not go over during any of the shows the past couple of days, the Blue Jays as a team are the best team in Major League Baseball at hitting splitters. They have the best run value against splitters, which means that we get late into a game for somebody like a Roki Sasaki who relies pretty heavily on his splitter usage. Could the Blue Jays as a team be the best team to be able to neutralize a weapon like that out of the Dodgers bullpen? They have a lot of hitters who do really well against splitters. Looking at run value or looking at batting average against splitters, Addison Barger, 389 batting average for him. Dalton Varsho has a 917.
I'm sorry, it's Addison, yeah.
Or Addison Barger, yeah. Dalton Varsho, 917 slugging percentage against splitters this year. Andres Jimenez, those 3 guys are hitting pretty well during the course of the postseason. A 400 batting average for Andres Jimenez. Those guys who have had extra success in the course of the postseason do really well against splitters, which means that perhaps some of the weapons for the Dodgers, if the Blue Jays can keep these games close, if they can neutralize the Dodgers offense, could potentially, not that they will, but could potentially take advantage of some of these strengths that have been there for the Dodgers and take what is a weakness right now for the Dodgers, that is their bullpen, and perhaps expose that because of their success against the splitters.
So how do they get the Dodgers out? I mean, squarely, Austin. Here, the game, the map for Toronto winning, and I could see this happening, okay, is that they hit some home runs, and they get aggressive early in the counts. They hit some home runs. They get like a 3 to 4 run lead. Dodgers offense just does what the Dodgers offense has been known to do this year and just fall asleep, okay? And they win the game like 4 or 5 to 1, okay? I think the map for Toronto is to win this series with their offense. And when I say that, I don't mean like score 10 runs. I mean like control the game with their offense by getting a lead. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And then putting the scoreboard, like Milwaukee never put scoreboard pressure on the Dodgers ever. The Reds never put scoreboard pressure on the Dodgers. The Dodgers really, I mean, the Philly series was close and there was some scoreboard pressure, but still not as much as there could have been, right? So it's a World Series. You're supposed to win. Shohei Ohtani just had the greatest game ever. You have home field advantage. You just need to get it back to Toronto for Game 6 like we saw with the Mariners. So when I say that the way that Toronto could win this series is through their offense, I don't mean that they're going to score 10 runs a game. I just mean that they're going to control kind of the tempo of the game and the momentum of the game by getting a lead by hitting a couple of early home runs. So having said that, how do they get the Dodgers out? I just don't see how they're going to get the Dodgers. If the Dodgers play good offense, I don't see how they get the Dodgers out, man.
Yes, that is a very difficult thing to be able to do. Decipher how exactly that's going to work out. Now, Kevin Gausman has had a little bit of success against some of these Dodgers hitters. I believe a 3.57 ERA against the Dodgers hitters in his lifetime. They also have Trey Savage, who I don't believe that any of the Dodgers hitters have seen in their professional career go up against him. So that's going to be a new challenge, and especially when you don't necessarily have the scouting report, but you don't have the experience against a pitcher like him, that could be something to where he could perhaps neutralize, and the arm talent is absolutely there. The Blue Jays just have to go out and get to hot starts. That is going to be the game plan for them. Their bullpen has really struggled in the postseason, which means they have to score early. And as a pitching staff, they're just going to have to go out there, and because they, especially out of the bullpen, throw a lot of walks and draw a lot of walks, they can't do that, or they just have to get enough swing miss out of this Dodgers lineup in order to be able to escape the damage that there is. And one of the most important players in this series, because the Blue Jays have a lot of right-handed pitchers, is going to be Max Muncy. Max Muncy is going to be one of the most important players because the lefties that they do are going to attack Shohei Ohtani. They're going to attack Freddie Freeman, which means Max Muncy, because he's towards in the 5 to 7 range of the lineup, he's going to get a lot of righties, and because they want to use a lot of righties to go up against, neutralize Tommy Edman, to go against Andy Pages, to go against Kike Hernandez.
They don't have any lefties though. How are they going to keep Shohei Ohtani and Max Muncy and Freddie Freeman from going off?
They're going to have to rely upon Flu Hardy. They're going to have to rely on Brandon Little. They might even have to rely a little bit on Eric Lauer in certain situations.
They've had a gas can so far this postseason.
They have not done well this postseason. Some of their regular season numbers are a little bit better, and it's all about
But it's baseball. It can change in a dime.
Anything can change. And also, if you remember back to Mason Flu Hardy against Shohei Ohtani earlier this year, 0 for 2 with 2 strikeouts, which means that they're going to take advantage of as many matchups as they possibly can in this series. And that is something that they're going to have to do because many of their other relievers do not do well against left-handed hitters. So they're going to have to mix and match, which means the person that is primed for the best chance to have the best matchups is going to be Max Muncy.
I wouldn't disagree with that whatsoever. And that's because he's left-handed. I think Freddie Freeman. I honestly think this sets up incredibly well for Shohei Ohtani. Although right here, as you look, I think it's just whenever Toronto has a dude on the bump, their dude on the bump has to be a dude. Not only has to be a dude, he has to stay away from the bullpen. Like Kevin Gossman, not only does he need to be good, he needs to go like 8 innings, like what the Dodgers starters did, just to stay away from all those situations we had. And then here's another thing that might not work, that could work for the Toronto Blue Jays' favor. Okay, you mentioned Trey Savage. The Dodgers have never seen him, so they're not going to have a book on him. They're not going to know what the game plan, like Andy Pages' heat maps were wrong for like the first 300 at-bats of his career. Just it's different when you're a rookie, right? So that could play into it. And then also, not if you see right here, not a whole lot of anything against Gossman, so the unfamiliarity factor usually a lot of times favors the pitchers, right? Because pitching just pitching overall favors beating hitting to begin with. So the unfamiliarity of the Dodgers facing a Gossman and a Savage, that could play havoc behind, the offense. But, other than that, another thing that Toronto would have to do as I bring this back is, unlike Milwaukee, if they got a 4 or 5 run lead, they would also need to, they drew some walks. They need to get into the Dodgers bullpen like in the 5th inning. Mm-hmm. I mean, if they're getting in the Dodgers bullpen like in the 5th inning, they have a chance. Now, we're talking about real small margins for Toronto, but there are pathways. It's kind of like an election. You go, okay, well, this person won this swing state, and this swing state. And so this other candidate has to win all these states because they didn't win any swing states. There's still a path. It's not a good one, but we're just talking about the different paths that are available. Draw some walks, hit a couple home runs, get a lead early in the game, get into the Dodgers bullpen in the 5th inning.
Yeah, and it is make enough contact and rely on the batted ball luck to where you are going to score some runs if you put the ball in play enough. That has been the recipe for the Blue Jays the entire season. So it's up for the Dodgers when the Blue Jays do put the ball in play, which they're going to put the ball in play a ton, to generate weak contact. And that is up to the Dodgers pitchers to be able to execute. But the Blue Jays are going to score runs in this series. And so it's up to the Dodgers as an offensive unit to be disciplined with their plate appearances, to go up, take their walks, and to take advantage and outpower the Blue Jays. On paper, the Dodgers should hit more home runs than the Blue Jays because that's what they did over in the regular season. Just because of the matchups, yes. And with the pitching that they have and with some of the advantages with their star players being at a matchup advantage for many of the matchups that they're going to go against in the series, they have to do that on the field, though. And that's up to the Dodgers.
They do. And again, if Jay's saying, and he's totally right here, if the Dodgers offense comes out and executes, this is not going to be a competitive series. So we're not trying to say that. We're not. What we're trying to do is paint the scene to where if you're sitting there and watching the Dodgers and you're going, that happened, that happened, that happened. Just know at that point there's some alarm bells. Like this is like the road map that could go wrong for the Dodgers, that could allow Toronto to win some games. And then I'll tell you another thing. This is more of a coaching point than it is a fan point. When you're the favorite, okay, whether it be in an individual game or in a series, I promise you, if Toronto goes out and wins game 1 and then they win game 2, that monkey's going to jump on the Dodgers' back. I know this is a very veteran club, but even being veteran, they're human. They will feel that pressure of, oh, shit, Toronto just won the first 2 games. We're supposed to be heavy favorites. What the hell is going on? They will feel that. So that will also be a factor too, which is why it is imperative to win at least one of the first 2 in Toronto.
It absolutely is. You saw Toronto be on the reverse end of that and find a way to be able to escape the series. But that is not something that happens historically much at all. I think it was mentioned 4 out of 28 times a team that went down 2-0 at home ended up winning that series. 4 out of 28 is not a lot, which means that
that's more than I thought it would be, honestly.
And that means that if you are the Dodgers, you have to take advantage of at least one of the games in Toronto and set yourself up to having a really good opportunity the rest of the season. And it really comes out to how do these teams go out at the start. how do these teams run out of there? Because the Dodgers are going to have a little bit of a break, which is why we talk about it quite a bit, because their offense has to take advantage early in the series and set the tone, because they can't let Toronto set the tone early in the series. The Dodgers have to remind the Blue Jays just how on paper superior this team is and be able to showcase that on the field, because you can't let, and as you mentioned, the coaching aspect, doubt creep into your mind a little bit, which I think the Dodgers are as professionally set up as any team to prevent that doubt to set up. But it is, as a human nature side of things, a little can happen and be natural, especially if the Dodgers get in a hole in the series.
I'm going to also remind people that it's the game of baseball. And in the game of baseball, there are so many variables, that there's so many equalizers. It is literally the most unpredictable sport ever, especially when one team, all they have to do is get to 4 wins. So another reason why, hey, not to be too overconfident, obviously, but not to the point of arrogance, kind of like we've talked about, kind of being our theme, is that just simply put, it's freaking baseball. I mean, it's not only is it baseball. I mean, the Toronto, they have 3 great, especially John Snyder's a great manager. I love him, by the way. I love how he handles people. But if Bo Bichette's back to his ways, if Vlad Guerrero Jr. doesn't slow down, if George Springer continues to play well, if Ernie Clement, he's going to regress to the mean sum. But at least if he's good at all, if Addison Barger gets hot, Addison Barger can hit the ball a mile. The Blue Jays do have weapons. So another point of this is just, it's baseball, man. I mean, it's the most unpredictable sport in the game.
It is the most unpredictable sport of the game. And as you mentioned, as we've talked about previously, some of the down the lineup guys have been really hot for Blue Jays. Addison Barger, yes. Ernie Clement, Andres Jimenez. You throw in Bo Bichette as part of that mix, yes, who has been phenomenal this year. Suddenly their numbers on paper look a lot better.
Let me ask you this.
Yep.
If you switched pitching staffs and Toronto had the Dodgers starting pitching staff, the Dodgers had Toronto starting pitching staff, wouldn't you be favoring Toronto just almost exactly like you're favoring the Dodgers right now? I mean, the favoring part of this is not because of the offenses to me, because Toronto has, in some ways, an equal offense to the Dodgers. In some ways, it's more, hey, the Dodgers are just that much better with the starting pitchers. So I think if you switch the starting pitchers, you'd be saying Toronto in 5 instead of the Dodgers in 5, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So that kind of should tell you about the offenses.
Yes, the offenses can be pretty equal. They're different with how they approach, but overall in the season, they've gotten to the exact same production side standpoint. They
Alejandro Kirk too, Austin. Sorry, but he's been really good.
He has been really good. So they have a lot of guys on their offensive unit, and as we mentioned before, they have some guys that play defense incredibly well. Now they're going to have to figure out some things with having Bo Bichette back in the mix. He's been a shortstop, but he has not been a good defensive shortstop for the Blue Jays, and he's coming off of injury. George Springer is currently their designated hitter, so they're going to have to make a decision as to whether they want to put Bo Bichette at shortstop, coming back from injury, or have George Springer in the outfield, who is a little bit banged up from what happened in the league championship series. But overall, as a defensive unit, they have a lot of guys that play really well, which means that some of the base hits that would fall against other teams that the Dodgers will hit this series are going to be outs, because the Blue Jays are going to make sure that they are outs. Defensively, I think Blue Jays definitely have the advantage in this series. And if their offense stays hot and stays competitive with what the Dodgers have, it's a real series. But it is up to the Blue Jays pitching staff to keep things close, because I think we all know that the Dodgers starters, or we think it's very likely that the Dodgers starters are going to go out there and execute pretty well to elite. Now it's up for the Blue Jays pitchers to pitch elite, to be able to keep the game close.
Do they have the ability to do that? Do they have the matchups to be able to be elite, like you just said? That's the problem.
That is the problem. The one thing that could be advantage, Kevin Gausman's a good pitcher. They have not seen Trey Savage, and if they get good starts.
But okay, so let's say Trey Savage throws well. How many innings is he going to go?
He has gone, 5 or 6 innings.
That's what I'm saying. So you're still relying on a bullpen that's crappy to cover 4 innings. Not only have they been crappy, like we have a comment here from Cole, they've used 63 pitchers in 11 games. So not only has Toronto's bullpen not been effective, okay, their lefties haven't been effective, which isn't good for them. And then they've used a lot of guys. And so even if, say, a Trey Savage goes 5 good innings, okay, who in the hell is going to cover those last 4 without the Dodgers scoring about 6 runs?
It's a good question, which is why they've utilized a lot of their guys pretty consistently, which is often a fatal mistake that teams make in the postseason, is an over-reliance on a particular guy. And for the Blue Jays, that has been Louis Varland in this postseason. They utilized him seemingly almost every single game. It was the exact same mistake that the Mariners made in Game 7, was going to Edward Bizardo, who has pitched over and over again for them, pitched really well up until that moment where he gave up the home run to George Springer. With the Blue Jays, they're going to have to mix and match. They are underperforming as a unit, but they still have a lot of guys who can get a lot of swing and miss, which means if the Dodgers are rusty as an offense, and if they get behind in counts, if the Blue Jays can go out and throw strikes and execute on their pitches out of the bullpen, which has not happened in this postseason, but has happened more during the course of the regular season, they can get some swing and miss, which means that if the Dodgers draw a couple walks or gets 2 base hits, they could strand those runners because of the swing and miss that the Blue Jays have out of their bullpen.
And they're using 11 60-odd pitchers in 11 games. On the surface, and that is not a good thing. You would rather have, like, this is my 7th inning guy, and you'd rather do like the Dodgers and be a little bit more predictable, because that means your guys are executing better. But here's another deal. It's like the bullpen game. Whenever you're using so many different guys, and that was another problem that the Brewers had, is that they had to, that first bullpen game in Game 1, that gave when the Dodgers beat all of their electric arms out of the pen in Game 1 and already got a good chance of looking at them, that was devastation right off the bat for Milwaukee. So it's the exact opposite. If you have a team that you never see the same guy in terms of a relief guy more than once, and they're just constantly throwing, so it's like a basketball team where every time down the court they're running a different junk defense out there. Not to say that the Toronto Arms are junk. That's not what I mean. But what I mean is they're junking it up in the sense that they're just trying to give the Dodgers hitter a different look every inning. That can also be tricky to navigate at times as well. So it'll be interesting to see if the amount of relief pitchers that the Toronto Blue Jays use, if that actually is a good thing or a bad thing for them. I think that could go both ways.
It could go both ways. They are going to have to mix and match, especially with looks, because many of their high leverage arms, and this is a point that we talked about yesterday, are not good against left-handed hitters. Jeff Hoffman, not a good pitcher against lefties. Sir Anthony Dominguez has been not good at all against lefties. Yariel Rodriguez, not good against lefties. Louis Varland has a 306 WOBA against lefties, which is good, but not elite. It's going to have to rely upon some of the lefties, which means out of the bullpen, the lefties that have not succeeded for the Blue Jays in this postseason, Mason Fluharty, Brandon Little, Eric Lauer, those guys have to perform in this series. Otherwise, Shohei, Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy are going to feast on the Blue Jays bullpen.
Here's another part of just kind of why this sets up so well for the Dodgers. It just feels like the Dodgers offense is set to explode. It's like it's been a powder keg that hasn't exploded yet. And so it just feels like the Dodgers, especially with all the matchups we talked about, just more than anything, you know how baseball, you have this right here? It feels like the Dodgers offense is due to do that right there, right?
Yes.
I mean, like we're talking about, Toronto's already done their powder keg thing. They have had all their guys go off just to get to the World Series. The Dodgers have not done that. So while it feels like the baseball gods, just the odds of things are getting ready to throw water on top of the powder keg of the Blue Jays, it feels like the Dodgers powder keg is due to explode. So that's another aspect of that I think is fun.
You look at the players that are underperforming their regular season stats by WRC+. Shohei Ohtani in the postseason, 29 points less than his regular season WRC+. Freddie Freeman, 34 points less than his regular season WRC+. Will Smith, 64 points less than his regular season WRC+. Max Muncy, 22 points less, which means, and then Andy Paje is obviously drastically lower than what he did during the course of the regular season, which means the guys that aren't hitting up to their expectation are some of your best hitters in the lineup, which means that there is a lot more room to explode. The guys that are hitting in the postseason are better than what they did in the regular season. Teo, Tommy Edman, Kike Hernandez. Guys that we could all probably predict would go ahead and do better than what they did in the regular season in the postseason. The guys that elevate their game in the postseason. If the Dodgers are able to get their superstars up to even the level of what they hit in the regular season, they're going to score a lot of runs, and the Dodgers offense is going to explode, especially with a Blue Jays pitching staff that has to be elite to match up with where the Dodgers pitching staff is at.
Okay, so the Dodgers don't swing at the splitter for Kevin Gossman. He throws it end zone about 32%. He did, so he can't get his splitter over the plate. The Dodgers aren't swinging at it. And even when he is getting outs, it's like 6 pitch at bats, and he goes 5 innings. And then Trey Savage goes 5 innings. Gosh, I mean, it's just a really difficult ask for Toronto. So also, just kind of to the point we were making just a second ago, if Toronto continues the way that they're hitting right now, which is massively above what they're honestly supposed to be doing, right? I mean, Ernie Clement and all that, even Vlad Guerrero Jr. hitting better than they should be at this point. Even if the Toronto Blue Jays continue to massively overachieve offensively, and the Dodgers continue to, in my opinion, underachieve offensively. I think they've underachieved in the postseason to this point. I think that's a fair statement to make. At least you could have that conversation. Even if that's the case where Toronto continues to overachieve the way they have and the Dodgers continue to underachieve the way they have, the Dodgers are still going to win if they pitch the way they have, even in that scenario.
Yeah, it comes down to the Blue Jays have to very much continue their overperformance that they have as an offensive unit, and they're going to have to pitch a lot better than what they did even in this stretch of the postseason. They're going to have to execute significantly better to give themselves a chance against the Dodgers and their starting pitching, because the Dodgers starting pitching is absolutely rolling at this point. Now, granted, it is just going to be and has a potential to just be 1 or 2 starts for each one of these guys, which you see over the course of the regular season. There can be 1 or 2 or multiple bad starts that a pitcher has in a Cy Young year. So even though the Dodgers pitchers are rolling, the game of baseball can be a little bit weird. And when
Glasnow could come out and walk a couple, so could Blake Snell, then all of a sudden a guy runs into it and you're behind. That could easily happen.
It could be a couple base hits and then 1 bad pitch, and bam, Toronto has a 3-run lead.
Well, because like Jay's saying here, one thing that is legit, I think that the Toronto offense is more legit than a lot of Dodgers fans are giving it credit for. And here's another reason why. Bat speed. I mean, their bat speed is very, very, very good. So while their bat to ball skills are good, and they're matching that with bat speed. So when you have good bat to ball skills and good bat speed, that's a double plus right there. So I do think that the Toronto offense is better than maybe a lot of people are giving them credit.
Yep, and it comes down for the Toronto offense, swing decisions, because they're going to swing a lot, but they have to swing at the correct pitches.
But you know how to fix that? You know how to fix that? Swing early and swing at the ambush pitches early in the count and hit them.
That's exactly right.
Stay away from the pitchers' counts like Milwaukee didn't. If Milwaukee could do that whole series over again, they would have swung at a lot of those early pitches, right?
Yep.
That's how you fix that.
And we've seen Toronto, as we talked about earlier in the show, as an offensive unit swing a lot more early in the count than what they did in the regular season. And I think that aggressive approach when pitchers are trying to establish themselves, trying to give a little bit of length to prevent the wear and tear on the bullpen, I think we've seen that come back and have a lot of benefits for Toronto as an offensive unit.
How about this for a storyline? Of course, you have the 2 best international players in the game, in my opinion, Vlad Guerrero Jr., as far as position players, and Shohei Ohtani. That's a cool storyline. But how about Shohei Ohtani? It came down to Toronto. Well, if you believe what people were saying, that it came down to Toronto and Los Angeles, and Shohei chose L.A., so there's some animosity there. And then George Springer is part of the 2017 Astros team, and he was good. And I know that Kike and I believe Kershaw is the only 2 guys left off that 2017 team, but Dave was on that team and the manager. And hey, they straight up stole a world championship from Dave Roberts. And at that time, Dave was catching shit, man. I mean, Dave was likely to get fired last year if they would have not gotten past the Padres. Last year, if the Dodgers don't win that, if Ryan Brazier doesn't go out there and start that bullpen game and get things going, I think Bonda was the second guy, and the Dodgers don't win that bullpen game and the Dodgers lose to the Padres last year, I'm convinced that Dave Roberts gets fired. And a large reason of that would have been because he got robbed in 2017. He should now have 3 world championships under his belt. The Astros stole that, and Dave's going to play that down, okay, which all managers will. Trust me, that's coach talk. I promise you that stolen 2017 with all the shit that he had to take, he can't win the big game, this and that he had to deal with because they stole that from him, I promise you that is a revenge type setting for him. And so the George Springer aspect of it when he comes back to Los Angeles, although Kike and Kershaw are the only 2 left, and Kershaw probably won't face him, the fans will remember it, Dave Roberts will remember it, and that will be a part of this series. I promise you it will.
Oh, Los Angeles is going to make their voice heard when George Springer comes up to the plate. And as you mentioned, Dave Roberts was 1 game away from being fired, and that potentially was the difference between him being fired and now him being a Hall of Fame type of manager. It's a huge pinpoint in history, that 2024 series against the Padres. But going into the series, obviously the Dodgers respect George Springer as a baseball player. But there is nothing that they, and especially Dave Roberts, especially Kike Hernandez, especially Clayton Kershaw, want to do more.
That son of a bitch cheated. Sorry, man. I'm getting fired up.
George Springer. And how fitting would it be in one of these games to be able to get Clayton Kershaw against George Springer and be able to strike him out? I think that would be the dream ending to this World Series for a lot of Dodgers fans. But it starts with going out and executing as best as you possibly can. And that comes with a respect of the player's talent. But this sure doesn't mean that the Dodgers like George Springer at all because of what happened in the past.
Hell no. Hell. And hey, George Springer played in Oklahoma City whenever, right before the Oklahoma City turned to be the Dodgers, they were the Astros. And George Springer, Mark Apple, and that whole group, Jose Altuve, they all came through Oklahoma City. And I got to know George Springer. So for me to not like him, that says a lot. And then also A.J. Hinch, who is an Oklahoma City boy, went to Midwest City. He was the manager of that team, and I coached against A.J. Hinch. I know him personally, and he is a great dude. He got caught up in the middle of that, didn't quite know what to do, but having said that, he was the manager. Mm-hmm. It is what it is, and I know you like him because he's now the manager of the Tigers, right? So for us to say anything about that is says a lot, and so I'm going to point blank say this. They stole that from the Dodgers, period. George Springer was a big part of that. And then here's another aspect of that. If they don't steal that, Yu Darvish probably, like Chuck's saying here, Yu Darvish probably sticks with the Dodgers. And then the Dodgers probably win 2 or 3 more beyond that. So That's the way nobody's ever going to be able to change my mind about that. Now, that's an alternate reality. It didn't happen, but that's the reality that I think would have happened if the Astros didn't do that, and that son of a bitch Springer being a part of that, and that's the way I'm going to look at that. So if we have a chance to send that son of a bitch a message, now don't impair the game, right? The best way to send him a message is to sit his ass down, strike his ass out.
Yep, that's exactly right.
And golf clap his ass all the way back to the dugout. That's how you actually handle it. But if the Dodgers have a chance to send a message, freaking do it.
Yep,
that's my message.
Yes, the best message that you can send is by getting him out and getting him out consistently, which is going to come down to the Dodgers executing. Now, just to clarify, the A.J. Hinch on my end, he is the manager of the Detroit Tigers. I think he is a great baseball mind, and I think that he is a great manager of the Detroit Tigers, and that's about the extent of what I have to say about A.J. Hinch, as far as me liking A.J. Hinch.
Yeah,
he's a great baseball mind. He's a good manager of the Tigers, but that's about it.
I love A.J. Hinch. He's an Oklahoma boy. He's an Oklahoma City boy. He's a wonderful human being. I know. But in a baseball setting, I can't do it. I mean, like if we were to go to a coach's clinic here in Oklahoma and we sat down and we started talking, I would just have to call bullshit on it. I just bullshit, AJ. I mean, just stop. You know, if you want to talk about your last golf round or whatever, but if you want to talk about winning the 2017 World Series, just shut the hell up. That's exactly how that conversation would go.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So that's I'm getting fired up. I need to slow down on that. So I think just the Ohtani. Hey, how cool would it be? Okay. They're going to give it to Ohtani, which Ohtani's just going to smile and be his nice self. And one of two things are going to happen. He's either not going to give two shits what the Toronto Blue Jays fans think about him, and he's going to go right about his business and not even pay attention to him, or they're actually going to kind of about halfway piss him off, and that's probably not going to be good news for the Blue Jays. So how about this? How about Toronto? How about the Toronto fans, which, by the way, Toronto Blue Jay fans are fantastic fans. They're absolutely awesome fans. I have nothing against the Toronto Blue Jays themselves. Braden Fisher's on that team. Matter of fact, if it wasn't the Phillies, first of all, if it wasn't the Dodgers, I would want it to be the Phillies, because I've told you that story about how the Phillies were Oklahoma City's AAA affiliation in the early 80s and all that. So if it wasn't the Dodgers, I want it to be the Phillies. And if it's not the Phillies, I want it to be the Blue Jays because of Braden Fisher. So I don't have anything against the Blue Jays, but I just think it's going to be great theater when Shohei Ohtani probably doesn't get booed, but it's going to have a little bit different vibe, and he shoves it straight up their ass. I think that's going to be a fun thing to watch.
It's going to be a great thing to watch. Toronto fans are going to bring it, which means it's up to the Dodgers fans to be extra loud in this World Series and try to help the Dodgers get to back-to-back World Series champions, because the Blue Jays fans who have waited 32 years for this, and if you heard how loud it was when George Springer hit that home run against the Mariners, the second biggest home runs in Blue Jays history, man, that place was rocking. That place is going to be rocking perhaps even more, especially if the Blue Jays get off to a hot start in the World Series.
Okay, Dave. Andrew Friedman, Billy Gasparino, of which none of them even know this. Well, Billy's been on my platform because Billy's an OSU boy. And I saw Billy in Tulsa, I think in August, and we talked for about 10 minutes. It was pretty cool. Then we sat next to each other in the whole game. Absolutely. Billy Gasparino is just absolutely awesome. So I do know Billy Gasparino, but I doubt Andrew Friedman or Dave Roberts even knows what Dodgers Daily is. So I say that tongue in cheek. But if this happens to come across your desk, okay, and you see this happen to go right to this part of the segment, okay, if the Dodgers are winning the game and George Springer is due up in the ninth inning to make one of the last outs, especially to clinch the World Series, please do me this one request. I don't care who's pitching. I don't care how good they're doing. Bring in Clayton Kershaw and let Clayton Kershaw shove it straight up George Springer's you know what. I would pay, I don't know how much money to see that. I could die and go to heaven at that moment and be happy. I'm just telling you.
It would be the most picture-perfect ending to the World Series. That would be the moment. Now, you don't do that if it's a close one-run game in which you
don't
need
compromise
to win
the
that
game. Yeah.
Yes, it has to be where the Dodgers get out to a comfortable lead, and you have the opportunity to be able to do that. But if that moment does come up, especially because this is the last chance, these last 7 games, and I don't think we've fully realized that. We have 7 more games of potentially seeing Clayton Kershaw pitch, and then that's it. And I know a lot of people have come to terms a little bit with that, but that is very hard. But to potentially see this moment, to be able to get retribution for what happened in 2017 would just be the sweetest moment possible. However, the Dodgers can't look ahead right now. They have to go out and execute in this series and execute one game at a time to potentially set up this moment. But this would be the greatest moment that could possibly come from this World Series.
All right, I'm going to ask you this very simply. The Toronto Blue Jays defeat the Dodgers in the World Series if
their offense overperforms and their pitching, if they dramatically overperform as a unit, both offensively and their pitching staff. They have to dramatically overperform. They can't match what they did in the regular season. Otherwise, that will not be enough. They have to dramatically overperform. And if you want to break it down a little bit further, they have to continue to have success from the bottom part of their lineup. If they get continued success with the bottom part of their lineup, that's going to extend the lineup quite a bit. If we're talking about the bullpen, if they get swing and miss, a lot of swing and miss out of their bullpen, they have the chance to be able to have some success, particularly if that comes from at least one of their 3 lefties. Otherwise, it's very difficult to be able to see how the Blue Jays on paper have a chance in the series. And then from the Dodgers side, if the offense slumps like we've seen in historical
just
trends,
for no reason other than the fact that it's slumped.
Other than the fact
nothing
that
really even Toronto's
weird.
doing, just the fact that Dodgers aren't playing good offense. They've done that.
Yep.
Against bad teams.
If the Dodgers offense slumps and gets into close games and then they play a sloppy play like we've seen them play a little bit defensively over the course of the postseason, that could open up opportunities for the Blue Jays to keep things close late. And if it becomes a battle of the bullpens, while the Dodgers have been better than the Blue Jays, relative speaking, in the postseason as far as their bullpen, the Blue Jays are going to have an opportunity because if they go up against Roki Sasaki, they are the best, perhaps, team to go up against them because of their success against splitters.
What's your level of concern, 1 to 10? You're the statistician.
I'm a statistician right now. It's between a 2 and a 3. It will never be a 1 because I'm never going to go to that extreme.
You're never going to just disrespect the other team like that?
I'm never going to disrespect the other team, but I am fairly confident in the Dodgers' ability to win the series.
Okay, so Kevin Gossman, lay off the splitter, make him throw the fastball up in the zone, make him get all of the off speed up in the zone, lay off the splitter. Trey Savage, just grind his ass out. I mean, just make sure he doesn't go more than 5 innings, right? And then the merry-go-round between those two starts with the bullpen. And so let's go to the another couple. Shane Bieber, can he get the Dodgers out?
He has had a little bit of success, but it's very much a question mark for his ability to go out there and pitch, just because he has not pitched a whole lot at all this season coming back from injury. So he's a giant question mark as far as his ability. He's had a little bit of success in this postseason. Will that continue? Remains a question mark. Yeah,
I got to see him, Oklahoma State 2017 in Omaha, College World Series. Tyler Hatch for Oklahoma State. Went against Shane Bieber, who is with UC Santa Barbara, and it was an awesome game. Oklahoma State won 1-0. So I got to see Shane Bieber right up close and personal shove against Oklahoma State. It was and Noah Davis actually was on that UC Santa Barbara team. Noah Davis was a bullpen hand for the Dodgers. We talked about that game here, remembered it. So I have nightmares of Shane Bieber coming up in the big moments. Does he have one, maybe 2 of those Hail Marys left in him, do you think?
He very well could. It's a former Cy Young Award pitcher. He has, in his past, been an incredible pitcher. Max Scherzer, similarly, the other starter that they have, had a dominant performance against the Mariners, a really good performance. There potentially could be something left in the bag for him to go out there and succeed. So they have talented arms as part of their starting pitching staff. It's just comparing them to the Dodgers. The Dodgers, on paper, have a very big advantage.
Yes. A guy like Max Scherzer scares me because, man, when you're a Hall of Famer like that and you're totally capable and you've done it before and those guys typically don't miss in situations like this. Does that make sense? I mean, like, if Max Scherzer ever is going to have another good game or 2 ever, it's going to be in this World Series. I don't ever trust Hall of Fame guys not to perform very well when it matters the most like this. If it came down like Game 7 and Max Scherzer was healthy and had plenty of time off and he was pitching Game 7, I'm going to be shaking in my boots just because those Hall of Fame guys, man, they know how to come through. And well, look at Walker Buehler last year, right, when it mattered. Mm-hmm. I mean, he pitched his best baseball. I could easily see that for Max Scherzer.
Yep, you could very easily see that. And if the Dodgers get in a hole in the series, let's say the Dodgers are down 2-1, it's Game 4, and you're going up against Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer has the competitive nature. I know the Dodgers fans had a bad experience with Max Scherzer, but overall in his career, he has a competitive nature that is very well showcased throughout his entire career. You look at specifically a game against the Mariners where he told the manager specifically, "You're not taking me out of this game," and he went out there and shoved and got the next hitter out. Mm-hmm. He has that competitive fire behind him, and it seems to be another situation where you don't know how many more years he doesn't know how many more years he's got left, or at least we don't. he wants to go out there and win at least one more World Series. And he had the one again for the Nationals in 2019. I can't remember if he was with the Rangers in 23 when they won it all, but he has a chance to win one more World Series championship. So he's going to leave everything out there on the field.
He absolutely is. Okay, so the Dodgers win if they just don't play terrible. I think we say that. So let's put it this way. The Dodgers sweep if.
Dodgers sweep if the starting pitching remains as dominant and they are able to average 7 innings from their starters over the course from their 4 games. If they're able to average 7 innings from their starters, it limits the exposure of the bullpen. And if their offense is able to hit for more power than the Blue Jays, I think the Dodgers have a tremendous shot at sweeping the series.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm going to say this is going to be our last thought here. I'm going to say this too, okay? The Toronto offense is, I think, better than what we're giving them credit for. I think in some ways they are somewhat equal to the Dodgers. I think this is the reason why we feel like the Dodgers are such heavy favorites is because of the starting pitching for the Dodgers. But let me finish with this, and I'll give you your final thoughts, and we'll get out of here, okay? It's baseball. I think the one thing that probably worries me, I said last night the one thing that worries me the most is that I'm too arrogant about the Dodgers' chances here, that too. And then let me add to that is that I've just learned in this game that whenever you think that you have everything set up the way that it's supposed to be, and this is the way things are supposed to go, just very rarely does that happen in this game, right? So just the fact that it's the game of baseball and it's so predictable, that creates anxiousness with you, does it not?
It should create anxiousness, especially if you've watched this 2025 Dodgers team. They got swept by the Pittsburgh Pirates. They got swept twice by the Angels. They've lost to a lot of teams that on paper they were better than. It's up to the Dodgers to go out there and actually execute and play well. And the biggest thing that I'm going to be watching for is how do they do offensively at the start of this series, because that's going to dictate the tone as far as whether the starting pitchers have to just be very good, which they are more than capable, and there is a very, very good shot that they're going to be very good, or if they have to be excellent. Because if the Dodgers offense doesn't show up, the Dodgers pitchers have to be excellent to perfect. But if the Dodgers offense can show up a little bit, which they have matchup advantages to go out and show up, then the Dodgers pitchers just have to be very good to put themselves in a position where not only are they going to win this series, but they can go ahead and win it in 4 or 5 games.
I tell you who's been their MVP. I said I do that all the time. In some ways, you know who's been the Blue Jays MVP has been Alejandro Kirk. You know why?
Why is that?
A lot of times he's hitting behind Vladimir Guerrero Jr., right? And so the statement is, don't let Guerrero Jr. beat you. Well, hell. I mean, Kirk has been good, right? So I think, the obvious is don't let Vladimir Guerrero beat you. I don't care. Hey, I've actually, the Ethan Holiday last year for Stillwater, in the first round of Stillwater in the state tournament, he got walked with the bases loaded, okay? Because, Josh Holiday has his son. There's some other good players on that team, but it was like, okay, if we just give up one run right here, he's going to hit a home run and it's going to be a grand slam. That's so kind of what I'm saying is if the Dodgers pitch around Vladimir Guerrero Jr., a guy like Alejandro Kirk, Dalton Varsho, Ernie Clement, the next 2 or 3 hitters behind Vladimir Guerrero Jr., really could determine whether Toronto has a good offensive series or not. And I'll say this again, and I'll give you final thoughts here, I promise this time. Having said all this, I think the Dodgers' powder keg offensively is getting ready to explode.
I think the Dodgers are set up to have a really good series. That does not mean that they will have a really good series, because we've seen in World Series past this not be the case, or the case where the obvious team goes on and doesn't win. And I think with this series, the Dodgers have to rely upon their experience and have a humble approach against this Blue Jays, to go out there and understand that their competition is really good and not have the arrogance of, we're in the World Series, we're going to go back to back. This series is already over. If they have a humble approach and they go out and play as focused as they have in the course of this postseason, they're going to go out there and the series is going to be short.
Dude, here I am. I mean, again, I just asked you the dumbass question of the Dodgers sweep if, right? Like, I'm a coach. I know better than to ask that. That's a stupid question. That's just a dumb question. Okay, and then Springer, Lucas, Guerrero Jr., Kirk, Varsho, Clement, Barger, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, a guy that, a lot of Dodgers fans wanted to play left field because he was that guy that could kind of get on base and have some bat to ball and be a good, maybe a high average type of guy. Jimenez, who's been hot. I mean, some good names there. I mean, I do think that's better. Like, I'm going to leave that with that's better than I think a lot of us give the Blue Jays credit for. So, final thoughts.
Yep, it can be better than what it gives it credit for, but that relies upon inexperienced guys in the postseason to have some success. They've had some success in this postseason. Will that continue for the Toronto Blue Jays? Will determine whether they are able to keep up offensively with this Dodgers juggernaut. World Series is just 2 days away. I couldn't be more excited for this World Series. If you couldn't tell, we have a lot of coverage.
Man. And I'm making up shit just to have to talk about, just to keep my nerves down, right?
And I think we're all going to be nervous for the next 46 hours until the first pitch is thrown out in World Series game number 1. And then all of this is going to be determined over the course of a 7-game series, whether the Dodgers are able to go back to back or not. Right now, they are set up in as good of a position as they possibly can, particularly in the starters, which means they are going to give themselves as good of a chance as possible. Baseball is weird, but also can be weird in a good way. In this series, it can go one or two directions, and we'll see which way it goes.
If the Dodgers did lose this series, oh my God, Dodgers fans are going to lose their minds. Am I wrong?
I don't believe
as confident as Dodgers fans are right now. Oh, it's not going to be pretty.
It would be
that's pressure, though. That's what I'm saying. That's pressure.
Yes, it would be a very humbling experience, which I've tried to learn some of the lessons from past early postseason exit, because the Dodgers should not have lost in 23 against the Diamondbacks. They should have not have lost against the Padres in 22. There are plenty of examples of the Dodgers being favored in a postseason series and losing that series. It is up for the Dodgers to go out and use the lessons that they've learned in the past and not repeat the same righteous mind arrogance that they have showcased or potentially have showcased, as far as we're the better team, so we're going to automatically go and win. You have to humble yourself and play good baseball.
They don't have to release their World Series roster till Friday, correct?
I think it's likely would be Friday morning sometime is when they would release the roster.
So we have a comment here that Yates and Scott are not on the World Series roster. That's actually not the case yet. I think Tanner Scott, he still has to get cleared by the doctors, and so it may not even be an opportunity for the Dodgers to put him back on the roster if he's not healthy enough and not cleared by the doctors. But he still does very much so have a chance to make this roster. I know there's a lot of people that think that the Dodgers would add a right-hander. I guess that would be Will Klein. So you're going to put Will Klein on there instead of Tanner Scott?
The question is that Will Klein? The other options would be Edgardo Henriquez or Kyle Hurt as a roster. And that only comes if you want to look at the Blue Jays and you're worried specifically about getting some of the right-handed hitters out. But they do have, especially with the lineup that they put out regularly against right-handed hitters, they have at least 4 guys that they can utilize as left-handed hitters. They got Nathan Lucas, they got Dalton Varsho, they got Addison Barger, they got Andres Jimenez, all left-handed hitters, but a lot of the guys that they have are right-handers, and especially if they add in Bo Bichette, that would be the theory, is if you wanted to go out and add somebody that can try to go ahead and get right-handed hitters out in a late game, or not a late game, in a situation where you have to dig deep into the bullpen. Which this is, you're talking about back in.
Tanner Scott's been better against righties than he has lefties, though.
For this season, I think overall in his career, he's been a lot better against lefties. That's the difficult thing about looking at righty-lefty splits, which is, by the way, a preview of what's going to happen in the offseason is we don't just look at the lefty-righty splits for one season. You have to look at the career, because there's a bunch of weird instances when you deal with smaller sample sizes. But I would anticipate they would look potentially, if they were to switch things up, either with Tanner Scott because of the experience that he has, and if the bullpens are looking better, and if he's looking a little bit more like the Tanner Scott of old, that could be something to where they want to have it instead of somebody like Robleski, who they've not utilized at all in the postseason, or if they wanted to go matchup specific, somebody that can get right-handed hitters out could be a priority for the Dodgers to be able to add to their pitching bullpen.
You imagine if a guy named Will Klein lost a World Series game for the Dodgers?
Oh, that would be.
Who hadn't pitched in how long?
He has not pitched since. Oh man, it's getting close to a month now.
That's the upset of all upsets. He hadn't pitched in close to a month. First of all, the Dodgers put a guy named Will Klein on the World Series roster instead of Tanner Scott, who they saw get Shohei Ohtani out last year.
Yep.
Right? So if he's healthy, that would be a massive upset just in the way Dodgers do things, right? And then you got to climb the hurdle of, Dave doesn't trust Will Klein. He has no reason to, right? Dave is a huge trust tree guy. So for Dave to say, hey, Will Klein, hop your ass on out there and try to go win this game right now, right? That in and of itself would be the second huge upset to even get to the point where Will Klein is on the mound. That would be like the two most uncharacteristic Dodger things of all time, as if they leapfrog a guy like Tanner Scott that they've seen do it before for a Will Klein that they haven't seen do it before. And then Dave actually puts them out there over one of the guys that he has in his trust tree. That would be crazy.
And this could be something to watch going forward. If the Dodgers have to dig deeper into their bullpen, if the Blue Jays are able to work counts or get a bunch of base hits to force the starters to get out, and if the Dodgers have to go deep into their bullpen, some of these guys have not pitched for several weeks.
I'm not saying it's not the right decision. I'm just saying it would go against what the Dodgers normally do. That's all I'm saying.
Yep, and I'm talking about a different aspect. Yeah, if the Dodgers have to go to some of the guys out of the bullpen that have not pitched for a couple weeks, for example, Ben Kasparius, Justin Robleski, even Jack Dreyer has not pitched a whole lot out of the bullpen. And even in the last series, Evan Sheehan didn't really pitch at all for the Dodgers in that series. You're going to potentially see some rust from some of these guys because there has not been as much in-game action. Could that rust, especially for inexperienced arms pitching in the postseason for the Dodgers out of the bullpen, could there be some advantages that the Blue Jays hitters are able to take advantage of just because these arms in in-game action have not thrown in a while?
Man, I went way over my last thoughts, right? Okay, but we have some great comments. So is this year's Dodgers team better than last year's Dodgers team?
Yes.
If you were to take this year's Toronto team versus last year's Yankees team?
I would take last year's Yankees team.
So last year's Dodgers team, that's not as good as this year's Dodgers team, is playing the Toronto Blue Jays, who's not as good as the Yankees team last year, and the Dodgers won that in 5.
Yep. And that's exactly what happened. Now, some of those games were pretty close, and they ended up leaning the Dodgers' direction.
I didn't want the Dodgers to lose Game 5. I would have been sweating bullets.
No, absolutely. No, if they lost that Game 5, then it is a massive series
Dave
going
even
into
said
Game
that.
6 or 7. Yes. No, they were able to win in 5. And on paper, this looks like a massive advantage for the Dodgers. But as we've said multiple times, the game is not played on paper. It is played on the field.
Man, this was a lot of fun. We talked I don't even know what we talked about, to be honest with you. We just talked Dodgers baseball. We're just trying to talk long enough to get our nerves out to get the damn first game started, right? That's what we're doing here, right?
That's exactly right.
Austin, appreciate you, brother. Great job.
Appreciate you, Case.
Hey, thank you to all you wonderful Dodgers dogs. It was one of the best crowds we've had in a long, long time. You going to be around tomorrow night?
Yeah, I'll be around tomorrow night.
Okay, so tomorrow night I get home at 8 o'clock your time. We can go about 8:15, which is 5:15, so we could go just about the same time tomorrow. How's that sound?
Sounds
right
good
around
to me.
6 o'clock Pacific tomorrow. We will go again. We probably won't have any topics. It's probably going to be a whole lot of the same stuff, but that's okay. Let's get together and talk Dodgers baseball this time tomorrow night. Same bat channel, same bat time. So one more time, thank you, Austin.
Thank you.
Thank you to wonderful Dodgers dogs. You're the absolute best, and as always, it's a great day to be a Dodger.